Happy Father's Day to all you dads out there. Welcome to Coach Chloe. Today we have a special gift for you. It is your special day and you deserve something special. How would you feel? How would you like to feel respected and honored like you're a king? Um, would you like to feel that you matter? What you do matters, your life matters, your opinions matter, your thoughts matter, you matter. Today in the studio, I have a dear friend, KJ, who will share his wisdom with all the fathers out there. And today we will share the crown model. So get ready for it. Once again, the crown model fit for a king for all you dads out there. Imagine if you could live every day experiencing a whole and complete version of the man you are. That's what we're going to be talking about. And today in the studio, I have with me my dear friend KJ, who's going to share his wonderful wisdom with you. He's coming to us from Costa Rica, and you will hear some sounds in the background like birds. So that's part of the whole show. So let's go with this. KJ, welcome to the show.
Pleasure to be here, Chloe. Good to see you.
Good to see
Always
you.
good to see you.
Yeah, always, right. I mean, every time we're together, there's so much of magic and there's so much of wisdom sharing. So I can't wait for you to share your wisdom with all the dads out there. Today, we're going to be talking about the crown model, everybody. And crown stands for C is for confidence, R is for resilience, O is for ownership, W is for wisdom, N is for nobility. And we're going to just walk through that. KJ is going to share some thoughts on each of these points and take what is going to matter to you because we want you to live whole and complete lives, a great version of you every day. So, KJ, let's start with the C, confidence. What is your daily boost of confidence as a dad?
I think it's a great question, and I think when I think about confidence in an abstract way, it's with fidelity. It's literally means with fidelity or with a certain alignment to my truth or my own anchor, my foundation. And when that's in mind, my boost of confidence comes from knowing that after 30 years of being a father, my children still come to me. My children still trust me. They still entrust aspects of their lives to me. And even though they're all adults now. And I think that is always a reminder and a callback. It's like, when David was facing Goliath, he said, well, I beat the last enemy with the jawbone, or I beat the last enemy with this weapon. He had the confidence and he had the wherewithal to face whatever else was coming up. And to me, that's the best you can do as a father, because you never know what's coming up next.
Mm.
All you can draw on is, I faced something like this before, or maybe the fact that I have faced something before and I figured it out with my kids and we move forward and we're still here. That, to me, that's where my confidence comes from. I can always look back on my experiences and say, I screwed up and I won, but I think in the total, I think I won more than I screwed up.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Knowing that every time something comes up, we have faced something like that before, and we did it,
Yeah.
and we will do it again.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Or we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we figure it out
Mm-hmm.
because there is no playbook that says this is how it gets done. But you
For
can't,
sure.
yeah, you can't just move on your experiences and your wisdom and your intuition in that moment. So that's the C in crown, confidence. The R in crown is for resilience. Now we know, like we talked about, things go wrong. We cannot not allow them or not let them go wrong. They go wrong. How do you stay calm when things are going wrong as a dad?
Well, I had an interesting background pre-dad state. I was actually a youth counselor at a all boys adjudicated a camp for adjudicated young men, and for 2 years I had to show up for them almost like a parent to help them wake up in the morning, do their chores, go through the motions, and brush their teeth and all those things. This is before my first daughter was born, and and I think what I learned from that little pre father period was every day what I show these kids is what they learn, and not what I tell them, not what I teach them, but what I show them. And that came back to bite me over and over again as I had my own kids. Like I thought I was teaching them one thing, but I was doing another thing. And I thought that the two didn't have to reconcile. But I
Mm,
think over time, I learned how to, as the kids say now, say less and do more and show up more. And that's starting to pay some dividends now as they are older. And we're having different conversations. So I think the resilience has come from, the ability to bounce back, the ability to hear, take feedback, understand what their experience of me was, good or bad, and keep coming back and keep showing up, as my daughter has told me on many occasions, keep showing up.
ah,
So and honestly, I don't think the resilience is a one person job. I think it does require that loop of feedback from our children to let us know this is what I see you doing well, and this is what I need from you. And often we play this game of needing to read each other's minds, and it's just not a productive game to play. It's better to just say what you need to say, as John Mayer sung.
mhm. Honest conversations are the
Hmm.
best conversations to have because we don't waste time. We deal with what's going on, and being able to have those conversations with tenderness, being mindful how those conversations are landing, and it's something that you talked about is when you show up, that's what kids are watching. No matter how old you are, whether even with me at my age, when I look at my parents, it's how I'm showing how they show up. I'm still looking at like a dad. My dad does a certain thing, or my mom does a certain thing. So it's the way we showing up, how we responding, and they watching us. They're watching. That's their first role model, right?
Every minute. When you
Yeah,
don't think they're watching, they are up in your
exactly.
business, all up in your business.
Yes, 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 true. So in the crown model, C is for confidence, R is for resilience, O is for ownership. Okay, so hey, we make mistakes as parents. Like I said earlier, there is no playbook that says, here's how you are a parent, here's what you do as a dad. And I know we make mistakes. How do you deal with those mistakes and how do you apologize to your children?
Well, this is one that took some years for me to get better at. I won't say I'm great at it because so many times our decisions as parents are um, like our children have the benefit of reflection, and they got memes and podcasts and books that didn't exist when Andrea, my daughter, was 5 years old. They're just tools that are available now, language that's available now that wasn't available when I was an early father. So of course I know I made mistakes back then, and yet it almost feels like we're dredging up things that really we couldn't have done any differently, quite honestly. And so the conversations I'm having right now with my children are around some of those things, but also it's around, so what's our relationship now? And I feel like owning that those were those days, and that's what I knew, that's what I had available to me. And also, I grew up in a very religious environment, and those were the tools that I was given from my environment and that I thought would work. And to be able to look back on those things now is very helpful because we can see them for what they were.
Mm.
But in terms of owning what's happening now, I find that even more valuable to be able to be with what is happening right now in my relationship with my children, what is happening right now in their lives, what is happening right now in my lives, and how are those two lives intersecting?
Mm.
And how do we make that relationship work, even though I live here and you live there, even though you're going across the country and I'm staying over here? And the dynamics are changing. Our lives are starting to get bigger and wider, right? And it's important to figure out how to be right now my children's parent.
Yeah.
And if I dwell and stay in the guilt of like, oh man, I probably screwed all my kids up at some point. And I feel like all parents probably should just admit that they did, because how could we not? How could we not screw up our kids at some point? We're all flawed, but at the same time, right now is what matters the most. Right now, we're building relationship, and to me, that's where I place most of my ownership now. Because if I don't own what's happening right now, it doesn't matter what I've done back then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much of wisdom, KJ. So much of wisdom, and so much of. I'm just hearing so many different things. The first thing that you shared was is language available now that didn't exist maybe even 10 years ago, and especially post. I feel post COVID, lots of language has emerged that we have access to. And something that as a mother, I know with my son, and Jethro, but you do the best you can.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best we can is not enough for our kids. But that's the only bandwidth that we have because we also managing our lives. So it is tough and we are flawed. But being able to say, what can I bring to you right now? What do you need right now? And how can I be a parent or, for father? How can I be a father right now for you?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. I love, what you just shared. Okay, so we have in the Crown model, C for confidence, R for resilience, O for ownership. Let's go to the W for wisdom. You had so many lessons over the years, 30 years. What is one lesson where that you have a bulk of wisdom that you'd like to share with us?
Oh wow. You're right. Though there are many.
Yes.
I think what comes up quickly for me right now is sometimes no words are actually required. Sometimes it's just important. I specifically remember this one time. Andrea was in one of the best basketball camps that Illinois had, and she was, I believe it was between her freshman and her sophomore year in high school, and it was summer, and I went up to pick her up from camp, and I pulled up to the camp, and I walked in the gym, and there is, forgive me, Andrea. There's Andrea sitting on the floor, just like spread eagle, and she's got blood like down her shirt, like drops of blood down the front of her shirt, and she's drenched in sweat, and she just looked like she's been in battle all day and all week. Actually, it was a long camp, and they did a few more drills to close out, and she walked up to me And I looked at her and I just gave her a hug. And I said, let's go get in the car. And I don't think we talked at all until she ate dinner that day. And I think it was just like, I could see that she had been in it, through it, and was tired and exhausted. And all I was really going to do to help her was get her home and get some food in her and help her get to bed. That was that was it. And honestly, I think, as Kobe Bryant has made popular this phrase "girl dad," there is an element of learning there around. I honestly think there was an access to an empathy that often I had a hard time having in a relationship with her mother or other relationships that I've been in. Because when a father sees a daughter in distress, there's very little room for judgment. It's more about, how do I care for her? How do I extend care to her? She is clearly under duress. Now is not the time for me to be the second coach of the basketball team. Tell her to toughen up. Tell her to wipe that blood off her shirt. But it's also not a time for me to coddle her. And that's a thin line. But in that moment, I realized, like, nope, hug, let's get some food in you. You've had a tough day. And I know she's a tough person. And I didn't want to take that away from her. And that was one of the biggest moments that immediately comes to mind in terms of fathering, that it was something that has always stood out to me as a moment in our relationship.
That is so heartfelt. Thank you for sharing that. Sometimes no words are required.
Yeah.
And being able to be sensitive to know when that is. When do I say something? When do I not say something? How much do I say? How do I say it?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I care? So it matters. How do I care for her right now? What does she need right now? And I love what you said. A father sees a daughter in distress, and all you think about is, how do I care? Not the time for coddling, not the time for being a coach, but maybe just the time for saying nothing. Because all she needs is that hug. Hugs are a million words.
Sure.
So many words packed in a hug. So thank you for sharing that. And fathers, if you have any stories to share, please drop that in the chat as we keep talking. Right. So now we at the end of Crown, the last letter of Crown. C for confidence, R for resilience, O for ownership, W for wisdom, and here is your N for nobility. How do you stay true to yourself? How do you keep your promises?
That's a tough one for me. That's been an evolution, quite honestly. And I'm going to speak to probably more specifically to fathers who've been through divorce and have had to navigate being apart from their kids and making promises and realizing sometimes you can't actually keep them. Part of that, I think, is wanting to keep promises, wanting to make that promise as if you still live in the same house, as if you still have that same level of proximity and access. And I think I went through a long period after separation and divorce where I was constantly trying to bridge that gap. And it was a never-ending impossibility. I was working a contract, I was traveling, or I was doing, and it just seemed like I could never reconcile the two. And at some point, I realized that I needed to my earlier point, I needed to say less and do more. Show up without promising. Show up without the grand gesture, because I felt like I was always trying to overcompensate for the absence. And as painful as it is to be apart from your children, some fathers have it differently than others, of course. Different states have different rules and laws, and you can get different arrangements for child support and child custody and all those things. But just the conversation around those things is exhausting. And I came to a place where I wanted to make sure that if I said something to my kids, that it was already done. It wasn't something I needed to figure out or hope I can make happen. And in many ways, that reduced my promises, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But in an environment where promises feel like assets, promises feel like collateral, feel like, cash in some ways. It feels like it's part of a transaction. In a world like we live in, it can be challenging to be in a place where you can't deliver the things that you aspire to deliver to your children. So I just want to say this to all fathers who are dealing with that kind of a context. It's not impossible to find your way to do what you say and not say what you're going to do. Those two things are so different in the eyes of a child. And I hear it now from my adult children, that there were many times that I said what I was going to do. And, I might have done it like a month or two later, but that didn't matter to them. What mattered was I said I was going to do it, and I didn't do it in the time frame I said I was going to. And that aches to me as a father. That's a huge ache. And that placed an imprint on my children in their younger years. During the time when, quite frankly, I was in pain. I was trying to navigate being single again. I was trying to figure out my way in the world. So all of those working parts, I've learned to give myself more grace around those things. And I think, not so ironically, my children have also been able to give me more grace around those things. We've been having more mature conversations around those things lately too. So I think there's an aspect of it where my integrity needed to shift to something that I could actually control, because I was trying to keep my integrity on an old way of living, and it was no longer congruent. And I had to figure out a way to make my integrity based in my own reality, not the one I wanted. And that has been a learning journey for me, even to this very day.
Wow. So deep, KJ, and so real. Thank you for being so real. And some of the things that you just talked about, wanting to keep promises, making promises with the best intention, but not being able to keep them is tough. Life gets in the way. Our lives, and parents, we also dealing with stuff in our life. Also recognizing when you can deliver and when you can't. What is real, what is not. Trying to keep your integrity in your own reality. That is really a powerful statement. Keeping your integrity in your own reality. And dads, just hear this. Being able to keep your integrity in your own reality is key. It's, and promises feel like cash. That as well. The children want, okay, show me the money, show me the things, buy the things, pay for that. That's children. And even as they grow, if we keep doing that when they're young, we now create a mode of this is what normal is.
Right. Right.
And how do we reset expectations? So they healthy expectations and boundaries. Early on, and I mentioned this a few times now, there is no perfect, and we do the best we can. That's all we can do. Do the best we can. The fact that your children still come to you now, the fact that your children and you have such a great relationship with your children, and I know the dad you are, is that's a testament to who you are and to your integrity and to how you father. So, this has been a gift to all fathers out there for today. And so, in closing, KJ, first of all, I'm thrilled you're here. Best choice, right? But in closing, what would you like to say to dads out there? Think about this year in 2024 and what's coming. What's some closing words of wisdom?
You never stop being a dad. You never stop. And when even into adulthood, your guidance, your insight, your experience will be called upon. And don't discount it. Don't discount your experiences. And be kind to yourself about what you've done. Because more than likely, you have done exactly the best that you could with the tools that you had. So be graceful to yourself.
Yeah.
But stay there. Stay present. Keep showing up.
Be kind to yourself. That is true. Be graceful to yourself and just keep showing up. KJ, thank you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with all the dads on this special day. And thank you for just, being so honest, open, vulnerable, because that's what we need to be as dads instead of always feeling like we're tough. So that's really powerful. Um, but in closing, I just want to share with everybody, and especially my dad, because it's Father's Day. And my dad is thousands of miles away. My mentor, the man that I look up to, the man who up to now, he's 89. Up to now, if I need to talk about anything, good or bad, I can pick the phone up, and there is no judgment. And I always think, wow, I feel blessed that I have that dad. I feel blessed that he is such a guiding light for me, a guide for me in life. So, Dad, if you're listening to this, happy Father's Day. All the fathers out there, happy Father's Day. KJ, happy Father's Day. And thank you for making this episode so special. Everybody, have a fantastic day, and I will see you soon.
Thanks, man.